I'm really excited to present our next presenter. His name's Chase Vance. Chase oversees much of the day-to-day, business of USA's largest B2B trade platforms for manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers. But in addition to helping buyers and sellers connect with one another online, he regularly contributes to the LinkedIn community, and that's one way that we got to know each other, because he is exceptional at putting that together, connecting A and B, and really growing through that online platform. I think better than anybody I've met. So thank you so much, Chase, for coming on and lending your advice to everybody.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah.
So if you could tell me a little bit, how did you get started on LinkedIn, and what's the benefits to using LinkedIn to sell?
So I think all this came about, I guess so everyone kind of knows, a little too late in the game. I have been, it's like anything, you got to start somewhere. I had been with top10wholesale.com and manufacturer.com since October of 2013. And I was fortunate very early on in my career, right when I finished college, I got to do some really cool stuff. I got to travel to, I was in China within my first 3 months of being at the company. I remember in 2014, I went to Las Vegas maybe almost 10 times, just all the different trade shows that we were going to. And I got all this baptism by fire, so to speak, of the way that business to business and the way that working all the way down to the end consumer works. But I never shared it with anyone. I had no reason for it. It's just maybe I was busy getting involved in what I was doing. But there was so much value that I could have added to my LinkedIn community, my friends that are as we're growing up together, we're seeing each other on Facebook and Instagram and so forth, to share those things. It's cool to see that whole process. And I never shared. And then I moved to Fort Lauderdale or Miami in April last year, and I've been seeing all these other people really develop good presences on LinkedIn and growing their personal brand and their career. And I was like, you know what? I have so many great things to share. Let's just do it. And now, a few months later, of consistently posting at least a couple times a day. Things happen, so sometimes you don't get around to it.
Right.
But now, I can actually make an impact, and I can see people's businesses grow with just a couple keystrokes. So that's really fulfilling.
That's excellent. I really think that a lot of people don't view it as that. It is a platform built to make friends, through business connections. And I think if more people viewed business as making friends, they'd enjoy it a little bit more, maybe. But very much like our next member question, she asked, she's not a social media person. Does she really need LinkedIn if she's not going to use it on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. Yeah. 100%. So absolutely yes. 100%. Every person, if you're running a company, if you're at the beginning of your career, you could be in college, just starting college. It doesn't matter. LinkedIn is the one platform that you should have a presence on, no matter what. Even if you're not posting a lot, you do need to be found. And in terms of like social media in general, I've come to really not like that term so much, because that is what it is. It's social media. But I think that, unfortunately, there's a couple stigmas attached to that language, right. Social media. So what I tell people to get away from is that all these platforms, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, WeChat, take it down to its simplest form. It's just another way to communicate. That's it. That's it. I can communicate with you like how we're doing on Skype. I can communicate with someone on the phone. I can communicate with them in person. And if you treat these platforms the same way that it is in person, you take away this. It's kind of one of the things. Hopefully, you can kind of convey what I'm trying to say here.
The stigma. I think you had it on the nose.
Yeah, it's just another way to communicate. And as we're talking, maybe I'll go into this a bit further. But I try to be the exact same in my online presence as I am in person. So, for example, eventually, if I get to the point, like maybe someday someone will say, "Hey, you're that guy. I followed you on LinkedIn." Like, I want them to. Like, they'll know exactly who I am, and they can communicate with me the exact same way. So I think that's what I would say to anyone who's new to using LinkedIn or any online platform. It's just another way to communicate, and leave it at that, and hopefully that'll help lift some of that past predisposition.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something I'd like to elaborate on. You said to be your authentic self, and not put on a salesman's hat or a presenter's hat, to be that authentic self. Is there anything that you can kind of convey that can help somebody be their self through social media instead of showboating and showing everything?
Yeah, I think showing a little bit of vulnerability is helpful, because I mean I don't know all the answers. I have decades to go in my career. I've been fortunate to learn a lot of cool things, but I think whenever when it comes to being authentic, it's almost, that's such a good question, but isn't it funny that we talk about like how do we be authentic whenever that should be something that we don't even have to bring up, but
right.
we do in a way. That's where I put out what I learned. All we are, as each individual, we're a summation of our own experiences. I didn't say that. I think someone else way smarter than me said that at one point. I thought it was really
but it
good.
Sounded pretty good.
Yeah, so, I think it's completely true. So all I have to go off is my experience, and I've done things in my career that I think would benefit people that have been doing things a lot longer than I have, and vice versa. I mean, I try to learn from everybody regardless of what's going on. So, for example, I try to post a lot of videos at least once a day. I mean, I do what I can. And a lot of times when I post these videos, the content is something, it's just from a phone call that I just had with someone, or it's something that I just discovered online, and sometimes I'll stumble and it's off the cuff, but that actually makes it more organic. People will, it's nice to get away from the likes and the ums, but sometimes whenever people see what's completely raw that's coming off which is what's off the top of your head, that's about as real as it gets. So
that's excellent advice to take what your experience is and to be able to use that to really broadcast to other people what you've learned. I think that's a perfect example. How do you use a platform like LinkedIn to sell? At the end of the day, your job is to increase sales. How do you use it to sell? So
the way that I use it to sell is actually the opposite. So hear me out with that. So we have a trade show that we also we have 2 trade shows that we run, and we have some companies that want to talk about what their company does at the show, and we actually tell them, we kind of have the stipulation for these companies that they want to present. We say, hey, don't make it a commercial about your company. Just share your expertise.
Right.
And I think what people need to realize is that and I think this is really getting out there now with a lot of sales training videos, but your expertise is more effective as a sales pitch than an actual sales pitch.
Right.
So what I'm trying to do, I mean, our job with top10wholesale.com and manufacturer.com is just to help buyers and sellers connect in all levels across the supply chain in domestic and global commerce, and in all industries through manufacturing, wholesale to retail, and also in closeouts. So my goal eventually, I would like to be the guy that you go to if you're looking for a supplier for XYZ. I want to be like that right-hand man to all the buyers out there throughout the United States and the world that'll say, hey, Chase, who do I need to go to for XYZ supplier or this particular service provider? So what I'm trying to do, for those who may be seeing this interview, and if you check out some of the posts that I do on LinkedIn, I'm just trying to share cool stuff, like things that I've interacted with on with my company, because I do think I have access to certain information, just as you do. I mean, for anyone who's seen this, you have access to information that I don't, and that no one else has access to. So share that some way, because someone out there is going to benefit from it. And I mean, as of recently, I've started getting some unsolicited messages coming to me. This guy the other day, he said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I've actually watched every single one of your videos." And I couldn't believe it. I thought that was the coolest thing. So I guess that's what I would say, is that just share stuff. It's not necessarily about the sales pitch. Share the knowledge you have, and eventually that falling will grow.
That's excellent advice. How do you take the platform, the profile for your online presence as a business person, and make it reflect what you do? Do you have any advice on how to really make somebody understand your business through your online platform?
Yeah, so that's one thing that I've started to do lately, because I post about a lot of the suppliers and service providers that are on our platforms, and I'll say, hey, if you're a buyer out there, here's some things that you should know about this particular vendor. And sometimes I will do a video to kind of get everyone back on track, because I'll reintroduce myself. I guess that's what I would get to do. So like, hey, so for those of you who may be new to seeing me, here's the company I'm with, and here's what we actually do, and how we help companies grow. Here's how we make money, yada, yada, yada. But in terms of go to the question again. I got a little bit too far off on a satellite.
No
tangent.
problem. Yeah, how do you make your profile or your business profile reflect what your business does in a way that people can quickly understand and learn about you?
Yeah. So when people first get onto the profile, and we're actually talking physically getting on there, because they're going to go to your website right away. One of the things I say is, like, have a picture. Whenever I see people that are in a business-to-business world, and you don't have a picture, like, are you kidding me? Really? I mean, like, in the simplest form, I mean, don't you want to see and know who you're working with? So I see that happen a lot, and I will always want to say, like, hey, just put a picture up, and then also use the cover photo. I mentioned, I mean, that's really good real estate. You can have someone do little graphics for it. I see some people, they'll put like a picture of like a beach or like a mountainscape. And I like that, because I kind of know who that person is and what they do. But I think it is a little bit better at times to I mean, use that as a good chunk of real estate to show what you do. So we try to do that, at least with my cover photo, to have like our different platforms on there, or a little snapshot.
Yeah,
so
that's good advice. And as far as, taking a platform like LinkedIn, because there's so many people on there, you're always getting, the messages. What can somebody do to stand out? If you're on there and you have a product and you're trying to get it, let's say, to distributors, how can somebody with a product stand out on LinkedIn when trying to build those connections?
Keep people guessing, but be predictable. It's almost like for example, when you're driving, you want to be a predictable driver, because that means you're safe, and you want everyone else around you to be predictable, because that means everyone that's in all around these cars is safe. So it's good. The predictability means that you can build that audience, and people will start to come to you for certain things. But also keep people guessing. So that's the balance that I think everyone out there, whatever industry you're in, figure out what that balance is. And I tried out different things whenever I post, where it'll be something that's like a very direct recommendation for someone, or if I need help with something. So those are things that work to stand out. I think people will pick up what you're trying to convey. Simon Sinek brought this up a long time ago in one of his biggest videos. I mean, really, really viral, about knowing why you're doing what you're doing. I try to keep that in mind all the time. And also thinking about, would I click or watch what I'm posting if someone else were to be posting it in my particular position? And I think that's probably one of my best filters for me. Like, if I'm typing something and I'm putting something out there, like, would I watch it? And if the answer is yes at the very end of that little filter, then go for it. And also, I mean, just put stuff out there. I mean, I think that's another way to look at it. Like, if something doesn't go that well, I mean, it's going to fade into cyberspace pretty quick anyways. I mean, it can always be brought up, right, but it'll get out of people's algorithm at some point, and then it'll fade within 24 to 48 hours. But just being consistent. I think when it comes to standing out, like, that's why I had to post twice a day, and like had nothing happen for months and months and months. And then it got to the point where people start liking and sharing. And I've noticed that on LinkedIn, a little engagement goes a long way. So just keep it up. Whoever's seeing this, just put stuff out there, and you will start to generate that following.
And the real goal here is to know your goal. If your goal is to build the community around you and to be able to make those connections, doing something like that is going to help them get there. But how does somebody find the right people on a platform like LinkedIn? How do you connect with the people that you want to connect with?
Yeah, so it's actually I think it's easier than for someone who's new to using LinkedIn or any online platform. I think it's easier than you realize. So for example, when I'm doing sales calls for the company, sometimes I might pick a category, like I want to do a bunch of cold calls for apparel companies or electronics companies or closeout companies or whatever. What you can do just to kind of build some awareness and find new people, what I'll do is type in like apparel buyer on LinkedIn, and you're going to get like 50,000 people that are going to show up in those search results. But I don't know if I would necessarily say go through just do like and connecting flights, just connecting on the connect. Yeah. It's helpful because as long as you have something to really add value to, you don't want to click and connect with people just for the sake of growing your network. I'd like to think that whenever I'm reaching out to someone, I actually do have something that they can benefit from, whether it be our trade shows or our online platform, whether they would be buying our services as a supplier or they would be benefiting from the content that we're putting out as a buyer to connect with a given supplier that is on our platforms.
Right.
So using anything like XYZ buyer or XYZ vendor, so searching things like that, or supplier, manufacturer. It's good to look for trading companies, sourcing agents. So those types of words that I've just said, if you look for those types of, if you tag those types of search terms into what you're typing in, you're going to find a whole list of people that you can start working with.
Okay.
So
that's good advice. And there is a in-depth search, isn't that right?
Yeah. So you can. Shoot, man, I should probably be using that more as well, because there's all kinds of filters. Yeah, I mean, yes is the short answer. You can't really dive in. But sometimes I'll break it down. Usually when I'm adding a particular group of people, it's narrowed down by particular industry.
Okay.
So
that's good advice, and it really leads me into my next member question, which is, should I get the premium subscription, and what does that get me? Do you have it? You use LinkedIn more than anybody.
Of course, yeah. So I have it. I think anyone that has that little gold premium icon, I mean, they're usually the real deal whenever it comes to those folks that are doing that. I'd say on most of these platforms out there, let it just be a part of your operating budget over the course of a given year or month or however these platforms have their subscriptions, whatever they cost. And just let that be part of your operation, because it gives you a little bit more credibility. That's one thing, which is great, but you need to back that up. And I think the most important thing that you're actually going to get from that is the SEO. It's your online presence now is your resume. Like, I'm to the point now where if someone wanted to learn about me, I'd say, hey, here, search me on Google. Here's my LinkedIn. Anything that you need to know about me is out there. So, yeah. That answers the question.
It does, and I think that's a little bit scary to a lot of people, is to have all that information out there. So specifically, how can you really restrict? I don't want anybody to be able to stumble across and see pictures of my kids or my family, through business. But how do you build relationships and trust with people online without exposing everything? Yeah,
man, that's the question of 2018. That's probably like a question of social media altogether. I like to be sparing with absolute statements, because sometimes I think it can be irresponsible to say all or everything or never, because right. I feel like one thing that I have found in B2B and B2C so far is there are no absolutes, and that's an absolute statement. So there you go. So what I feel is you have to figure out what that line is between your personal life and your business life. And I think that there's a lot of case studies out there with a lot of online influencers in whatever industry. When you think about it, we know a lot about them. We've seen their spouse, we see their kids, we see their hobbies, and all these things about them, and then we see their business. And then at the end of the day, we kind of like them. Because they're very transparent, and we can typically tell that we would be able to have a conversation with them if we were to run into said person in person, or we would want to do business with them at some point. So that's the thing that everyone should figure out. I know in my particular situation, maybe I should scale back a little bit, but I've kind of gotten to the point where I think that the bots all around the world know so much about me already. All of my profiles throughout all of the internet, everything's completely public, and anyone can find me on any platform. And the reason I've done that is actually for business purposes. I want whoever's seeing me as a professional to be like, all right, so like, well, who really is this guy? So that's why I've put in my Instagram handle on my LinkedIn. And that's more of just I want to humanize myself. I don't want to be this right. LinkedIn bot or this business robot. I don't think anyone does. I'm a regular guy. I like to ski. I like to go outdoors. I like to do real stuff that we all do. So I think that's up to you out there, is to figure out what you want to share and what you want to keep private. But again, I think at the bottom line, when you think about those who have been most influential, they have been very open about their entire lives and everything they do. So I think I would leave you with that question.
That's a phenomenal point. I think that really understanding where your personal line is and knowing where that boundary is, that's what you have to set off the bat. So when you're developing these relationships with people online, you found the right person, you connected with them, you started a conversation, you brought your authentic self. What are some ways that you can take that conversation from LinkedIn to the real world?
Real quick. So typically, like, if someone likes something that I do or shares something, or if they send me a message, I'll say, hey, it's great to meet you. Let's hop on a phone call. I'll give them my phone number, or I'll ask for their phone number, and usually I'll call them with 10 or 15 minutes of that message happening. And I'd say maybe 90% of the message interactions that I've had on LinkedIn with people, it's a quick hello, here's who I am, then I'll go and they'll do their side as well. Let's hop on the call, and then just call each other. And it can be completely cold, but I mean, it's not though. It's very warm. I don't think I've had any off-color things happen on LinkedIn, because usually people who are engaged on LinkedIn, in my experience, they've been legitimate. So.
Okay. Well, that's an important point. I think a lot of people are weary about people that contact them, online, especially if they're new to the online world. You really have to kind of take that conversation offline. And I think that you hit on a specific point, which I'd like to elaborate on. Phone calls are still the way to build that relationship. So you can't do everything online. Taking it to phone. Do you also use it when you go to a conference? How can you use this kind of a platform when you're going to an event or somewhere where people are going to be? That's what I think people, especially in my generation, need to keep in mind, is that all these platforms out there, they should not be a crutch. They shouldn't be the only things you're using. No matter what anyone says, the phone is king. The phone will always be king. That will never ever change ever. And I want anyone out there just to know that cold calls, I guess they can be tough at times, but everything has to start somewhere. Right. So if it's something that is a core part of everything that we do, why be afraid of it? So, like, for example, like all these things that I do with my online presence, it's just an extension of me, so people can see who I am. So, and to have a voice. I mean, it's kind of difficult to. I mean, anyone can make an impact, but the ones I think in most statistics that would be out there now, for those who do have a following in their space, are able to make a bit more of an impact. And I think we can see that all throughout history. So it's just about going about that process the right way. Excellent. That's a very good point. If you're to leave our audience with, one key point, one thing that they can do to best prepare today for success this year, what would that be?
Might have a couple of things. So let's see here. I would say for both business-to-business folks out there that are seeing this, and people that are selling products to the end consumer, be it through a retail store or online, knowing that the environment's changing a lot with the way that searches are happening online. And that it's online and offline now. A lot of these relationships now, I think that the philosophy of trade shows is now shifting because online is becoming so strong. And what's really funny about our platforms, we've worked with a lot of different trade shows, and we help a lot of these shows out, but we actually never wanted to do them ourselves, because we just wanted to grow our platforms and help more buyers and sellers connect online. And now we're running our own trade shows, so that's how the universe works sometimes. So we did it the other way around. And a lot of our exhibitors are able to, they grow through our platforms more than they do the actual trade show, because they have visibility on our platforms as well. So it's really fulfilling on our end to see that. Like I spoke to one of our exhibitors, and he said something like that. Hey, I got a couple folks that saw us online, and they were going to meet me here at the show. So. Awesome. Yeah, so that's one thing, is that the online and offline are converging. So that's something to note for 2018. I guess that for everything I just said sums to that. So online and offline are converging. let's see, what else? I guess, okay, so something to keep in mind for anyone that's in a B2B role, that's like B2B e-commerce, is to know that your buyers out there, they're getting younger and younger. All of these, like, you have the senior buyers at all these companies, they're bringing in new folks out of college that are in the junior buyer positions or associate buyer positions. And those folks, when they're doing their reconnaissance and searching online for new vendors or new products or just the next cool thing, they're doing a lot of those searches the same way that they were searching for products as an end consumer, and I'm the same way. A lot of these initial relationships are starting online. So I think that another thing that I could leave people with is that your online presence is, more people will see you online forever going forward, online first than in person. So what I've always tried to convey is, like, I'm that same person that you see online that you do when you meet me in person. So your first impression, everyone says that that's an important thing. So just make sure that your online presence is what you want it to be. So yeah, I think that would be a good way to kind of put a pin in it for everyone.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate your advice. I think that you have such a great perspective on this kind of a subject, and moving forward, this is going to be the future. So if people can prepare now for then, I think that everybody's going to be a lot more successful moving forward. So thank you so much for your time and experience today.
Absolutely. Yeah, glad to share. Hopefully we'll have some questions. So yeah.